Recorded. So we are recording and presentations up. Becca, can you see it?
Yep, we're good.
Sweet. We got 100.
All right.
It's great.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. So again, thank you all for joining us this evening. We know this is a very busy time of year. We really appreciate your time and attention, on a weeknight evening. So we'll go ahead and get started. We have recently visited with the 10th grade advisories over the past few weeks to talk a little bit about the college process at CA. And so this is just sort of a little bit more in-depth presentation of what the 10th graders have already heard recently in their advisories. So we hope that you will learn a lot. And if you have questions, we are here to help. So for the 9th and 10th grade years, we sort of view that as the college awareness phase, where, we certainly don't want to, sort of shove this in the face of freshmen and sophomores, because we want them to, really focus on building their academic foundation for high school and, having that authentic high school experience. So we want them to sort of be aware of college options, but not, going 120% into this process at this point. And then 11th and 12th grade, that's sort of the second phase. And we call that the actual college search and application phase. And that's when things really, kind of formalize in terms of our conversations. So we're excited to, start this journey with your students. And yeah, so we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so here is our office. Collectively, we have about 20 years of combined experience in college admissions. All of us have worked at either UNC Chapel Hill, Go Heels, or Duke, and we're a bit of an office divided, which is kind of fun. But we have lots of experience reading all those essays and all those recommendation letters. And we know this process really well from the inside out. So just to go through everybody, we have Leah Sung Jones, one of our co-directors of college counseling, Brandon Carter, who is with us tonight, who's the other co-director of college counseling. Some of you may remember him from his Dean of Students days last year. He was our Dean of Students for 9s and 10s, but now he's back over full-time in the college counseling space. So we're happy to have him upstairs. And then we have David Secchi, who's the Associate Director of College Counseling. And then there's myself, Becca Hawk. My last name is pronounced Hawk, like the bird. I know it doesn't look like that. And then finally, Miss Britt Carducci, who is our awesome admin assistant. And just to sort of point out, I am the point person in our office for 9th and 10th graders, which is why you're seeing me tonight. And so if your student has any questions about the college process or just anything, related to their extracurricular activities or courses or just anything, my door is always open to them. And I've already met with about half the sophomore class at this point. So I'm really enjoying getting to know your students this year. So yeah, so we'll click slide. So the next thing we're going to talk about is kind of what to expect from the college counseling office here at CA. So we're here to kind of guide you through this journey from start to finish. And like I was saying earlier, kind of the more formal aspects of that start in junior year, when we start building that college list. And your list might start out really long of colleges to research and look into. And then, the idea is that we will kind of hone in and whittle that list down a bit once we arrive at senior year and the rubber meets the road and the applications start getting submitted. We will help your student create a timeline for meeting all those application deadlines and kind of help them stay organized throughout the process. We will also serve as just a sounding board for ideas when creating essays and writing activity descriptions. The essay, tends to be the area of the application where students get pretty stressed because it's all on them. The transcript, the grades have already, they've already been put down, but the essay is where they have all the control. So that takes up a lot of our work in the fall is helping students work through those essays. And then finally, another piece of the puzzle is helping students select their teacher recommendation writers. And will help students sort of decide who they know best, who they feel can really write the strongest recommendation letters for them. So we'll help through that process. Okay. So tonight we are going to talk a little bit about the structure of the higher education system in the United States. There's with a couple thousand colleges at the 4-year level, there's a lot going on. So we're going to kind of break down the system for everybody. We'll go over some frequently asked questions about academics, extracurriculars, and also the testing component. We get lots of questions about, which test should I take, and when do I take whatever test I'm taking, and how do I prepare for that? So we'll go over a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about the money piece because that is, an important part of the process. And then finally, we'll address a little bit of, what you can be doing now as a 9th or 10th grader, looking ahead to 11th and 12th grades.
So we're going to take a little bit of time for understanding the U.S. higher education system. It is quite different, and it's not lost on us. We have a number of parents who may not have been educated within our system, and it is fairly different, right? Like there are definitely different things to be considered in the admissions process, different timeline. The financial component is often different as well, and so we just wanted to kind of give a landscape to everyone so that they kind of understand what we're working with within our American college system. Most of our students are going or staying here in the American college system to attend for their undergraduate degree, but you may be considering or talking as a family with your child about them going elsewhere, going outside of our continental U.S. or even our system at all. And so we just kind of want to give some information about that. So understanding the difference, it really comes down to holistic versus testing emphasis. For those of you who know someone, or maybe again yourself, you've been educated outside of the American college system, you quite understand that it is about knowing exactly what you want to do as early as possible in high school, taking those appropriate classes in order to then take exams that are associated with those classes. Whatever those marks are, then put you in competitive competition, I guess, for admission for those institutions. Our American college system is different, so you can kind of see that breakdown here. Transcript is definitely still key in the American college system. You won't probably find a single admissions counselor that will tell you something different than that. So that's why we do tell students, hey, what you do in the classroom matters. And how you approach your academics is something you want to keep in the forefront of your mind, even starting in 9th grade. So if you have that student in your in the bedroom around the corner and you're unsure what they're doing day in and day out in terms of homework and meeting deadlines and things, that it's important. It really is important to maintain a balance, but also understanding that transcript is going to be key. Courses and grades, what you take and how did you do. But there are also the other components of testing if you're going to be submitting, if a student's going to be submitting testing as part of their academic part of their application. Extracurricular activities, jobs, things. We're going to touch on some of those things a little bit later. Recommendation letters, the essay, personal statement. There's also supplemental essays that usually come by way of the college asking, like, why us, or please elaborate on an extracurricular activity of yours. So there's a lot that still goes within this piece of the application. And then the institutional priorities of the school that student is applying to oftentimes is fairly blind to the layperson, right? Like trying to understand what exactly that school is looking for in that particular cycle year. Sometimes schools will share that information. Other times we, as your college counselors, are trying to glean those things as we visit them, as we talk to admissions counselors, like, hey, like I saw that you just started a new computer science program. Yep, we just did. Well, guess what? An institutional priority is putting those butts in that computer science seat, right? So that is an institutional priority that you can kind of figure out. And there's a whole host of other ones that are considered that we try to keep a beat on. Right now, currently 2,000 plus colleges in the American college system are test optional. That number was a lot lower than that prior to the pandemic, superheated that consideration for a lot of colleges. So, and a number of them have remained so. They've remained test optional. And we'll talk a little bit about testing a little bit later. And an emphasis on creating a class. Uh, if there's one thing that our colleges are always talking about is we don't necessarily, I should say that, we don't necessarily want or need every applicant to be well-rounded. We don't need a student to have a vested interest in all of the 5 core subjects, take all across, a kaleidoscope of electives and be this well-rounded student doing service and a sport and all these things, right? That's not necessarily what they want. They want actually students with more spiky interests, things that kind of make that student kind of stand out. And then collectively, as they admit those students within that class, it naturally becomes well-rounded, right, to them. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, going back to how it's a little bit different in the other countries, high stakes, 1 or 2 tests carry significant weight. And there's such an emphasis on knowing what you want to do for study before you leave for university. The most common major that students are putting down in the American college system and matriculating to their university is undecided. Students do not need to know what they want to do from in high school in order to carry that study on to their college or university here in America. And then knowing that a number of those students are going to go off to graduate school to then study something a little bit more targeted. So definitely different in that way. Already kind of touched on this, but the choice of major, a number of students, if you are coming in undecided at the American college system, you have until your second year to declare a major, and still allows you to graduate on time within 4 years. If you're an engineer, maybe 5 or 6 years, but you can pay attention to that once you get there. Understanding the difference between liberal arts and pre-professional. So some schools are kind of setting you up for, exactly what you want to do. There are some students who know, like, this is for me, this area of study. I'm going to come in, I'm going to be taking some of those classes initially as I start my journey in underclass, my undergraduate years, versus liberal arts. You're going to get a taste of just about everything under the sun. There's going to be general education requirements that the university feels that all students need to have exposure to before electing what major you're going to particularly pursue. Fun fact, UNC Chapel Hill, which is a very well-known school amongst our students and families. A lot of people don't understand that it's a liberal arts institution, even though it's a research one university and has those opportunities there. And eventually students will choose their major. There's a lot of different courses within their general education requirements that you have to fulfill before going into your particular major. So that's something that is often misunderstood. Just because it's a large public institution does not mean it doesn't have a liberal arts curriculum. That's something to pay attention to. And the science major is not required for medical school. We've had a number of students to end up in medical school. Maybe they took some prerequisite courses that they need during an undergraduate degree, but they majored in philosophy, right? So majority of their classes were taken underneath the philosophy major, but they took the courses required to apply for med school, and then they went off to med school upon acceptance. So that's something also to keep in mind. While in other countries, as we talked about, choosing your major in high school is the natural order, and focus on going directly into professional career after you do your undergraduate years. Cost differences are also there as well. In the U.S., obviously ranging from approximately 20,000 to 80,000. There are some schools now who are above that mark. So they are making you definitely put your skin in the game, I guess you could say that way. And then graduate schools, an additional cost, which is a conversation that we have with a number of our students. that say, I don't want to spend all of mom and dad's money for undergraduate years with this high priced private institution that's admitted me. I'll choose to stay here in state at our great in state public institutions, and then carry over some of that luxury, if what have you, in terms of financial support from the family, and carry that over to graduate school if I decide to go. So, and that's just being financially responsible in our eyes. So other countries is kind of the flip-flop, right? It's free or heavily subsidized. All citizens within Sweden go to school for free, right? Like it's just a part of their culture and society and how they've built education. And so so it is definitely sometimes on the cheaper end, and there's less concern about amenities, right? So you're probably not going to find a lazy river on the middle of campus. You're not going to find a rock wall. You're not going to find big time sports is not something that's really like getting on early on a Saturday and getting ready to go to cheer your team on in a huge stadium is probably not going to happen on your university's campus. You might be getting ready for a soccer match that is that's representing your country, but big time sports is really just one of those factors for the American college system. When we talk big time sports, we're talking basketball and football, the things you see on Saturdays and often during the week. So that's a concern. That also is an additional cost, which raises the cost for our education here in the United States. So definitely pros and cons. I would say, we're talking to 9th and 10th grade families. That is something that you want to go ahead and start having a conversation with Miss Hawk right now. If your child or you want there to be some considerations for schools outside of the American college system, again, the timeline is different. The deadlines are different. The requirements are different in terms of testing. And so getting ahead of that and knowing and being able to plan for that is super, super important. So that will be a recommendation for us.
Mhm. All right, so we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about college rankings. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the U.S. News and World Report rankings that come out every year. And we just sort of want to emphasize that, we don't want to say that there's no value to those rankings, but we really, really strongly encourage our students and families to go beyond what those rankings indicate. Studies have shown that aside from whatever ranking a college occupies, the outcomes and the success of the students are much more based in how engaged the students are while they are at their particular university. So even if you are at a highly ranked institution, unless you're engaged and maintaining good relationships with your professors and getting involved on campus, it doesn't really matter where you go. But as long as you are doing those things, those are going to be your real indicators for future success. So overall, we say take these rankings with a huge grain of salt. And our approach in our office is that college is a match to be made, not a prize to be won. It's not about who gets into the most competitive colleges. It's more about finding those schools that are truly a good match for every student. And every student's path is individual to them. We all students have different things that they're looking for, different preferences. We take into account their learning styles. We get to know our students really well here at CA, and I think that's kind of the beauty of our process and our philosophy, is that we really just focus on fit and making a good match as opposed to prestige or ranking. So that's just something to kind of know about how we approach working with students and families. Okay. So here is a slide that sort of shows some of the resources that we always point to to direct families or students to just learn more, not only about the journey to applying to college, but making this transition into adulthood, because that's really what, high school is it's, this kind of slow process of letting go and, getting your child ready to sort of launch out into the world of young adulthood. And that's really scary. So there are books out there to help. So here are just a couple that we really like. The first one is actually not a book, but it's a blog that we in the office really, really love. And you'll see in our newsletters during junior and senior years that we send out, we include links to this blog almost every other week. Is Georgia Tech admission blog. Rick Clark is their VP, and he is just a wonderful writer and always has just the best words of advice to keep us all, and I say us meaning counselors, parents, students, everybody, to keep us all kind of grounded, and have a healthy perspective in this process. So we love the Georgia Tech admission blog. So if you don't have the time to dig into some of these 500-page books, we highly recommend the blog. The blog posts are awesome. But from there, these books, the FISC guide, all of us have a copy of the FISC guide in our offices. It's really our go-to. You can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It profiles about 300 colleges in the US. And what I personally love most about FISC is that it gives both a narrative perspective on a college, but also kind of gives you the numbers. So you'll be able to see the admit rate. You'll be able to see, average SAT scores. You'll be able to see how many students get financial aid, all those nitty-gritty details. But then the narrative description will include quotes from professors and students and alums, and it just gives a really nice picture of a college. So we love the FISC. And then from there, a couple of books just about kind of raising kids in general, how to raise an adult, and also Never Enough. Never Enough just came out a couple of months ago, actually. So it's one of the newer books on this list, but kind of in the same vein of how to raise an adult. Basically, how to work with your teenager to maintain a healthy perspective on this college process, and sort of not falling into the trap of the comparison game, and just getting caught in the weeds with constantly comparing themselves to their peers and getting stressed. We all know that teenagers now, whether it's a result of COVID or not, but we're in a mental health crisis with our teenagers. And so to us, these two books are just provide some great perspective on how to really be there for your teen and support them in the process. And then just quickly, Colleges That Change Lives. This book has been around forever. Profiles maybe 25 or so small liberal arts colleges across the United States. Oh, sorry, 40 schools. It says right there on the cover. 40 liberal arts colleges from across the country that are sort of like the hidden gems that really turn out some really successful, happy students. And these might be schools that you've never heard of, but Guilford is on there. Guilford's about an hour away from here. University of Lynchburg. So lots of great hidden gems in that book. And then where you go is not who you'll be. Just kind of that, just like what we were saying earlier about, going to med school. You don't have to be, a biology major to ultimately, end up, being a doctor. There are different paths to lead you to where you're ultimately gonna end up. So just some interesting perspective. And then finally, The Truth About College Admission. This is by Rick Clark, who also does the Georgia Tech blog. So some really good resources within that book as well. So just a few favorites from our office. Okay. So we're going to kind of go through some frequently asked questions where you guys are at this stage in the game in 9th and 10th grade, to just go over some pieces that might be new to you, like what appears on your transcript and how are we going to pay for college. These are things that are definitely going to start, surfacing in your mind as we go forward in the next few years. And so, so first, yeah, thank you, Mr. Carter. So this is what an upper school transcript looks like. So what grades are reported on a CA transcript? They are final grades only. So if you'll just see, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades, you will not see on the transcript any attendance records or any detentions. There will be no standardized test scores on our transcript, no teacher comments. This is a very, just a snapshot, one pager, but it is definitely the most important part of what we send to colleges in senior year. So that transcript is super duper important. But we just wanted to clarify what is on it versus what is not. And so, we like to say at CA, own your learning. And this really, kind of comes into play when you're in 9th and 10th grade, because like I said, this high school process is all about, kind of slowly, ramping you up to, release your young adult out into the world. So, we want them to be actively engaged in their classes. And part of that is forming relationships with teachers. It's not always easy for the kids who might not be super extroverted, but, we really think it's important that, that students and teachers, get to know one another, because, they're the ones that are going to be writing those recommendation letters, later on in senior year. And so, and I think CA has the type of community where, that's where the best learning happens, right? Our classes are small. Our teachers really do get to know kids outside the classroom through, sports and clubs and activities. So, we think that's really awesome, but really encourage your students to, get to know their teachers better. And, now it's going to be a great time to read through those semester one comments that are going to be coming up. This is a good chance to kind of take stock and see where things are midway through the year, because, you still have time to, improve any grades or address any, issues or any deficiencies that might be holding your student back. And, another, excuse me, thing that we like to emphasize with students is that, in 9th and 10th grade, this is a great time to sort of decide, like, okay, what are my couple of activities going to be that I'm really going to engage with and focus on throughout high school. Because like Brandon was saying earlier, we don't, colleges can kind of spot a habitual joiner from a mile away. We don't want students just sort of joining a bunch of things, thinking it looks good to have this, super long resume, when the student really isn't making any kind of impact in these organizations or really engaging on a high level. We'd rather see students, really kind of pick and choose a few things that they're genuinely, truly interested in and really dig into those. And so, 9th and 10th grade, it's definitely, it's great to explore and kind of try new things. But, again, especially for, you sophomores, like now is kind of a good time to kind of hone in and kind of see what, what you're really enjoying at this point. Because now's a great time to start thinking about, how can I up my leadership in some of these activities, or maybe, take an initiative to do a fundraiser, or, start a new club that doesn't exist, things like that.
Thank you, Becca. So
Right.
kind of going along those lines, when you were when she was mentioning about the pursuit outside of the classroom. And so we try to see, like, or at least help students to kind of see that maturation process in terms of your activities outside of the classroom. So 9th, you're tasting the world. 10th grade, again, you're going to start to kind of hone in on some of those things. And what you'll see from most Carrier Academy students, by the time they hit junior and senior year, they kind of have solidified on a couple of things that they really have vested interest in. And one thing that we try to, tell students is, once students move into that junior and senior year, and advanced courses are now on their plate, they have higher level responsibilities and maybe a couple of engagements at Carey Academy as well as outside of Carey Academy, the world becomes a lot bigger to them, but also time becomes a lot smaller, right? And so that's why we say, if you kind of hone in on those, those interests that you really, really like and that you really care about, it won't necessarily matter to you as much if you have to figure out your time management. So if you're invested in something and time becomes, smaller for you, you'll be able to make some wise choices. And here's how I allot my time to this activity, and you're less likely also to dislike yourself when things get tough, right? And so that's really why the philosophy behind extracurriculars is that do what you love. It'll make you interesting to colleges, and you'll be interested in the things you're doing, so you're less likely to drop them when things get tough, right? It's all of that is wrapped up into that. And the way you have natural you should feel freedom in doing that, is that there is no hierarchy for extracurricular activities. That there's always a running rumor within almost every single class, graduating class at Carey Academy, or the underclassmen, that you have to do debate to get into X college, which is false. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. We've had plenty of students go through the college admissions process at Carey Academy, never seen A201, the walls at all, in terms of speech and debate, and they went off to great schools just like their peers who did do speech and debate. Now, I'm only highlighting speech and debate because it's a large organization. A lot of students will hop into it. There's elective courses that are tied to it. There are some great things about our program, namely because it helps you in terms of collaboration. It helps you in terms of public speaking, teaches you how to be a better researcher and a good, better consumer of media and informations and resources, right? Like it is going to teach you all of those kind of building block things in order to help you in other aspects of your Carey Academy tenure, right? So yes, I may also love to do and compete in speech and debate, but it's also giving me other things. But the same thing can be said about robotics. The same thing can be said about our computer science lead. The same thing can be said about our performing arts program. Like your interests outside of the classroom and diving deeper into those things, becoming more engaged, is making you a better student. And colleges are actually asking students about that. One of the most common essay prompter we're getting on in the application season right now, helping seniors complete their applications, is elaborate on one of your extracurricular activities and why it's meaningful to you. Tell me about a positive community that you're invested in and how you're making an impact in that. They're not asking about calculus. They're not asking about your grades or your GPA that we don't give students at Carey Academy. They're asking, how are you invested in your community outside the classroom? Yes, how you pursue your academics, how you approach your learning, all that stuff absolutely matters. Transcript is key, remember? But they're also going to say, okay, well, you're at a relatively smaller school. We know you have this robust affinity groups and extracurriculars and sports and leadership academy and all these other things that we have going on. They want to see students who are invested in those things. Oh, and don't let us not forget X Day, right? There's so many students who say, well, I don't necessarily want to devote some time to an extracurricular activity joining right now because I got a lot on my plate. I'll get exposure to that in one of the X days, because a lot of the clubs run a lot of the X day activities. And so you can get a taste of it on a day you're not missing class or have to sacrifice something else. And then you never know where it could spark or where it can go. And so that's why we really ask students to kind of lean into the non-academic fortunate offerings that we have at Carey Academy, knowing that there is no hierarchy in terms of arts, sports, debate, job, research outside of Carey Academy. There's nothing that's going to be favored higher or more. Colleges really just want to see you invest in the time and the things that you're interested in. So a part of that is also summer. We get a lot of questions, and I know Ms. Hawk is fielding a lot of them right now for 9th and 10th graders of what should I do with my summer, right? We're not going to sugarcoat it. Colleges do want to see that you're engaged in some degree in during the summer months. Now, what that actually looks like is totally up to you. It just can't be only video games the entire summer, right? Like it can't be that unless you are a video game developer or designer, and that is in your future, and you're doing undergraduate research while you're playing all of your video games. But you also have this online community that you're tapped into and serving as a support. Like that stuff matters, right? And we have an esports club now at Carey Academy that competes against other teams. Like if that's your thing, then that's your thing. But for the majority of students, they're going to be looking for things that they want to do during the summer. And here are just some suggestions that we have in terms of thinking about those opportunities. It's a great time to develop and explore other interests. Maybe you don't have enough time to devote during the school year, but you have time in the summer because there are no courses and things like that. So maybe you tap in on some different things, knowing that there's little to no risk. If you don't like it, it's totally fine. You never even have to put it on your college application if you don't want to. You might just be trying to get a taste of that and saying, you know, so many of my relatives say that I'd be a great engineer. I took a 1-week course in engineering. I am not going to be an engineer, right? Like that. Now you have confirmation that maybe that's not necessarily your path, but that's okay. A job is positive, we promise. Just going to say that there. I know there might not be a lot of students right now on this because this is geared towards parents, but parents, you absolutely have free range to now go to your child and say the college counselors at Carey Academy, who have all worked in college admissions, said that getting a job is a positive thing. And I mean, line your pockets with a little bit of pocket change. You also develop communication, time management. I mean, responsibility. There's so much that comes from getting a part-time job that we really enjoy and that colleges look for as well. Is it a requirement? No, it's not a requirement, but it is suggested for those students who want to get a job. Summers do not need to be planned to the minute. Please don't make your child do something every single time. They work hard during the school year at Carey Academy. They do need a break. So make some time to do some traveling, just walking in your backyard on the free trailways we have here, go to a park. I mean, find some things where they can kind of turn their brain off, while also, you know, filtering in some of those more directed things that we're talking about. Please know that now that you're officially in high school in 9th and 10th grade, your student's going to start getting these really glossy, really high cost program invitations in the mail. And they're going to say, hey, you should come do this program at X college over the summer because it's really going to help your application. And we're here to tell you that that's false. Just because you do a program at a particular school, said school, I'm not even going to name any names, but you do a summer program at a school does not increase your odds of being admitted to that school or any other school. Choose those summer programs because you like the agenda, you like the interest, you want to actually stay on a college campus and get exposure to that. So all of those elements we do appreciate for those camps and those type of programs, but just know they do not impress colleges. It does not need to cost much or anything at all to be valuable. If you want to invest in these summer programs or a summer opportunity that costs a pretty piece of money, then that's totally an investment that you can choose in terms of a family and the students. But as you have now heard us, a lot of the opportunities and things you can do during the summer do not have to come with a cost at all. And they can still be valuable. They can still be growth inducing and helping your student before they return to us in that next fall. So those are pieces about summer. Now I'm going to go in testing a little bit here. I know this is kind of like a elephant in the room for a lot of families. So we just want to kind of give some insight into it right now, and more so timeline. We know that testing can kind of get a little bit bigger, so we don't want to spend too much time here in terms of what that looks like for 9s and 10s. But just so you know the timeline, we have ERBs in May for 9th graders. That's just what it is. You're taking ERBs at the end of 9th grade. 10th graders, you are going to have a practice SAT and a practice ACT at Carey Academy in April and May. So those tests will already be ordered for you. You do not have to pay for them. You don't have to sign up or register. You just have to follow the emails that's going to come to you later. Come to your child later, but parents will also be copied on that, so that they know how to prepare, what to bring. And when I say how to prepare, I mean, get a good night's sleep and drink some orange juice in the morning. Don't do any test prep, please. Right? Like that's not what this is for. This is the prep. Taking a full-length practice SAT and a full-length practice ACT through Compass Education Group. It's a test. The two tests are the ones that they created. Then they take the results of the student, and then they create a full diagnostic report to share with you and your child. To say, hey, you may be leaning a little bit more towards the SAT, or hey, you may be leaning a little bit more towards the ACT. Here's what makes sense in terms of maybe if you're thinking about doing any test prep at that point. Here's what you might want to consider. And again, this is a free to CA situation in terms of these practice tests for the SAT and ACT. And the diagnostic report is free, and there's the full consultation after a one-on-one meeting with someone from Compass Test Prep is also free to you before you decide if you want to do something with Compass Test Prep in terms of actual test prep with them. Then obviously you can work out that agreement, but these things that you see on the screen are available to our students just by way of being a Carey Academy student. Our goal is for you to walk into the summer having more of a clearer plan in terms of testing. Earlier this week, we sent out the testing timeline and FAQ in the email, so you can take a look at that. It has some great frequently asked questions on there, so you can make the best decision for your child as they approach this testing season. Other testing questions you may have: with all the test optional colleges, does my student even need to take the SAT or ACT? Our recommendation is still that students do take the SAT or the ACT or both of them, depending on how they're feeling, with the expectation of knowing that at any point a college or a college system, a la the North Carolina system, can go back to requiring testing. So if you already have it on the books and you're good to go, you don't have to worry about anything. But if they don't require testing and you don't want to submit it for your with your application, then you don't have to. So just because you took the SAT or ACT, colleges do not have access to those scores. They don't just naturally go to the colleges. Students have to report them to them either officially or on their application. So, and that's a whole process you work with your individual college counselor to know about. And where can you find more information? We're glad you asked. On our Blackbaud page, parents, you log into Blackbaud, you see the resources tab up there at the top, and then you will see one of the tiles that says college counseling. This is where this presentation that we're recording will live. We're also going to send it out by email, but you'll be able to have access to it here. There's plenty of other resources, PDF forms on there, as well as our philosophy. It's a really great starting point if you have questions or just want to read through some material before maybe scheduling a meeting with Ms. Hawk, if you so choose, to kind of talk more one-on-one about your child's situation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carter. So I have the fun job of talking about money and the college process. This is a conversation that we encourage families to have soon and often, because the last thing you want is, March, April of senior year, and you've got decision letters in hand. And, if you haven't had this conversation by that point, it really hurts to tell your kid, no, we can't afford this school or, XYZ college. But if you would have had that conversation kind of going along, hopefully you would not have, kind of gotten backed into that corner. So we really, really encourage this conversation to happen early and to keep it, just a part of the conversation as you move forward. So two resources that we'd like to just point out to you all about, just kind of understanding how financial aid works and how to figure out, what you might qualify for. First is the net price calculator. Every college has to have one of these on their website. So if you were to just Google, Elon University and net price calculator, you would be directed, straight to their website. You could, plug in a few variables, regarding your income and your family circumstances, and get a rough estimate as to, what you would have to pay or what you would qualify for in terms of financial aid. So it's right out there, accessible to anyone. And then a second resource we'd like to point out is myintuition.org. So kind of along the same vein as a net price calculator. It's a really quick 6-question survey that will help you determine what your financial picture would look like for various colleges. And only about 70 colleges use this website, so it's not as wide ranging as the net price calculator, but still a really helpful tool. And it also takes into account if you are separated or divorced. So if you have these circumstances, it's nice to know more specifics around that. And even if you at this point don't expect to qualify for any need-based aid, it's still just a really good idea to sort of know the process and see what resources are available out there, because as we pointed out earlier, college is not it's not cheap, and it's certainly not getting any cheaper, with some schools being 85,000 a year and up. So it's pretty those numbers can be pretty harrowing. So then the next resource I'll talk about is Smart Track. We host a program with Smart Track every year. This year we did it we'll do it in the spring. Mr. Carter, do you know any details?
Yeah, Mr. Suchu will be sending out some information on that, so just keep an eye on your inbox. But should be looking at the spring, and it'll go out to Carey Academy families to join that session.
Yeah. And Smart Track information is also linked in our Blackbaud page that Brandon just pointed out a few slides back. So again, just another way to sort of understand the steps of the financial aid process. And something we like about Smart Track is that you can schedule a phone consultation with them, and they're not going to try to sell you on life insurance or annuities. It's just straight up kind of financial aid with regard to college. So just another really great resource to use. Okay, so just to sort of wrap up before we take any questions, what can we be doing right now, in this college awareness phase of 9th and 10th grade? The first thing is that, we want you all to know that, there are many paths to success within this higher education system in the U.S. Again, in our office, we really, really focus on fit and trying to find, the best schools where, our students will be happy and successful and, be able to work toward their goals. So it's not about name or prestige with us. We just really want to focus on where our students are going to be, where they can thrive and grow, not only as students, but just as human beings. There are so many examples of CA alums who, might not end up at, their first choice or second choice school, maybe not what they had imagined, but ultimately they end up being really happy where they are. That phrase of, blooming where planted. CA students are really good at that because, they're, resourceful and resilient and, bright and, ready to engage in the classroom. And so, even if things don't go according to plan, they still seem to end up being pretty happy. And we know that because they come back and see us. Last year, really, especially around the holidays and during, spring break, we would have alums come back and talk to us, and it's always so fun to hear how happy they are and how well they're doing at their universities. So again, that focus on fit is really what's most important to us. The second thing is that we want you to seek reliable sources when you have questions. In this day of social media and the Facebook groups that have 50,000 members in them, and people posting, my son has this ACT score and this GPA, and they didn't get into UNC Chapel Hill, and then, bring on all the comments. or the Reddit page about, who got into Yale this year or whatever. There are so many resources out there that are not always reliable. And so we just really encourage you all, as you're sort of consuming all of that and getting ads for expensive test prep, you're going to get inundated with it. And we want you all to know that we're here for you, to support you all through this process and to come ask us questions when things come up, or if you read something online that you're not so sure about, or just sounds kind of crazy and you want clarification. We've all done college admissions. We've all done college counseling for years. We attend conferences, we visit colleges, we serve on boards, we present at conferences. This is our life's work and we love it. So please, please come to us with questions, because there is a lot out there and it can be really overwhelming. And then finally, just like I mentioned on the previous slides about financial aid and sort of the money process, do some research and homework now, so that you won't be kind of blindsided when it comes to, fall of senior year and you're going through the financial aid process and everybody's emotional because it's senior year. It's good to kind of take this in small chunks rather than, trying to swallow it all senior year. So start thinking about financial aid now, and that way it won't be such a mountain to deal with in senior year. Yeah, that's about it.
Perfect.
Anything else?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a few questions. I think a few questions in the chat, the question and answer, and then we'll take just a few minutes to kind of address them. And then if we run out of time, we're not able to address your question, or you have more details to share, like, well, yeah, I know you touched on this, but here's my child's situation. That is a perfect opportunity for you to email us, to schedule a meeting with Ms. Hawk, schedule a phone call if you can't make it in, or a Zoom meeting or something. She's very, very flexible to get your questions answered. So I'm going to just now start with the ones that I believe Mr. Suchi asked. Will we address them live? And then Ms. Hawk, you can see the questions as well. So we'll just go back and forth, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So are there any recommended resources for exploring or narrowing down the 2000 plus school options? That's a fantastic question. So really, I mean, there are a number of resources that you could probably use. One that we really like, that we're actually going to demo for the sophomores in spring next year for sophomore college night, is Big Future. So Big Future actually has a search option on their website, and it's free. You don't have to have a College Board account or anything like that. And it allows you to put in preferences. And so you can put in preferences like location, size, setting, anything under the sun, financial constraints, anything like that. And then those schools will kind of populate or present based on your preferences. Now, to get that number down to a little bit more manageable, it takes some work, right? But that is one way to kind of, bring that list down a little bit more realistically. Also, a recommendation of ours actually is, I love it, and we recommend this. If you're a 9th or 10th grader, it's not too early to go see a college campus. It is not, it's never too early. I think it actually demystifies a lot of that mystique in terms of, ooh, college, and it seems so big, until you actually sit in an information session and then go on a campus tour and you're like, oh, wait, this isn't that bad, right? And you get valuable information about what that particular institution is expecting of its students, or what it looks for in its applicants. And then you go to another school that maybe is different from that. I'll just give you an example. Maybe just a local option, you choose NC State and you choose Elon University, right? I'm going to take my child to go see a large public institution in North Carolina, and then a small private institution that's in a more rural setting. You will see the differences. You will feel the differences. You will hear the differences. And that will give you, if you haven't been able to investigate or research some colleges right now, that'll give you an opportunity to kind of see those things and then you can kind of maybe build a list from there, or at least other colleges, additional colleges that you may want to see. If you step on NC State's campus and you feel completely overwhelmed and this is too many people and I can't learn in this type of environment, well, you're probably looking at yourself as, I'm probably more of a mid-sized to smaller institutional person, right? And that's okay. Now I'm going to kind of do some variations within those settings and locations of that type of institution. So that's just one example, online resource, as well as doing it in person. And then again, our office is a resource. We love colleges. We'll give you some recommendations of some places to look into based on a short list of criteria you tell us about.
Yeah, that's honestly one of my favorite parts about this job is when a student comes in and says, I like X, Y, and Z colleges. What other colleges are like those that I should look at? And then I can just start, rattling off colleges. I enjoy helping students kind of broaden their lists a little bit.
Okay, so next question. Can you comment on test timing as it relates to National Merit Scholar opportunities? Yes, that is a junior year situation. So in October, all the juniors are registered to take the actual PSAT through the College Board. Students will take that, and then based on that score, they will be it'll be assessed whether they hit a particular index and whether they qualify as a national semifinalist. There's a whole process that comes after that, application, all of those things. But yes, that is a junior year situation, nothing tied to 9th or 10th grade in terms of national merit consideration.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see. Another question about research or internship opportunities, what are available to our CA students, and is there guidance on finding these externally? I would say this is really student dependent. And Mr. Carter, do you want to talk a little bit about the work experience program for juniors? That might touch a little bit on this.
Yeah, so in real time, obviously all juniors have the opportunity to do the work experience, which is 2 weeks or more. Sometimes they lead into the summer for some students, following junior year. And so that's something that will come from Dr. McElreath's office and the community of the Center for Community Engagement. So you'll get more resources on that. But if a student is looking for research opportunities or maybe doing an internship or something, our two recommendations right now as a 9th or 10th grader is we have a resource, a summer opportunities list that is on our Blackbaud site. So you definitely have access to that. It's not necessarily research or internships, but there are summer programs that are there. Our recommendation is tap your resources in terms of your families or friends who have individuals who work in professional settings where your student may want to shadow or may want to do an internship. That is also something helpful. So tap it into the resource that is the community. The Carey Academy community can often lead to some of those opportunities. But as you all are here, 9th and 10th grade, please know there's only so much that they're going to allow a very young teen to do in a research lab. Okay, if a lot of it is going to just be watching, right? So if that's your goal and your child just wants to get exposure to things and be able to talk to some people and things, and that's fine. But I think there's a little pie in the sky expectation of, I want my child to be, using Bunsen burners and, doing original research in terms of cancer and all this stuff. And that's just few and far between, if at all, a reality in high school. And plus, colleges don't actually want to necessarily see those things, because that puts students in such a, it makes them feel like they have to do something that is super, super monumental before they even hit their undergraduate years. And that is just a huge ask that a lot of colleges just know that they don't want to put on the shoulders of a teenager. So.
Yeah.
So I'm taking a look at time right now, and I want to be sensitive to that because we do have the community research and activism that's going to do their presentation. So I know there's still some questions that we weren't able to address. So if you would like an answer to those questions, please just either email us your question. It can go to the college counseling at careyacademy.org email address, or it can just go directly to Miss Hawk and we can fill them out that way. Find one of us, find our email, send us your question, and we want to make sure that we get that addressed. But we're really, really thankful that you all shared your time with us tonight. Again, this will be recorded. We will send it out so you can watch it as many times as you would like. And then if any other questions pop up in that moment while you're watching, again, reach out to us. We're here for you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Brandon, can we keep recording just so that we have this for our class?
I was actually going to stop recording, and then I think you can record at that moment. So let me see.
Even okay.
Yeah.
I got it. Thanks for letting us dovetail.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to get out of the presentation.
Parents, if you've got another 20 minutes that you can stick around with us, we'd love to have you join us for our presentation.